Hello. Can you hear me?
I get it. Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I finally made it. I feel such stupid trying to get on this thing.
I know it's horrible.
No, well, the one I have at housing is just, it's much easier. I figured it out, and then what I did is I closed it down, and then I shouldn't have closed it because it put me, say that there was another meeting going on. I said, oh, no, no. So we're the only ones here so far?
So far. Yeah,
How's
and what's his
keeping-
name going to be on?
Hmm?
Who is it? Gary? Jeff?
No,
Who runs it?
I like the flowers behind you. Those are pretty. Those are butterfly flowers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're called bee balm.
Yeah, bee balms. I've had them in my yard. They're pretty.
Thanks.
Where have you got them? In a sunroom? You must have them in a sunroom, obviously.
No, this was taken in July. It reminds me that summer will be here sooner or later.
I think spring is March 20th, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's Karen. Hi, Karen. I finally got in on my own.
Way to go.
You know, I feel so stupid. If my grandchildren were here, I would have no problem. They get me right into it.
Marianne, I had the same problem. It said that the host was having a different meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Oh my God, I shut everything down and tried it again.
Nope, it wasn't just you.
No.
So you can tell your grandchildren, it
Well,
wasn't
usually
you.
what I have, you ever see that commercial when the grandkids come over and the grandmother and grandfather come out on the porch with all the electronics for them to fix
Oh,
for them?
yeah.
That
yeah.
problem. We have that problem. We can't get the TV to hooked up correctly. That's a problem. But if my dog came in the room, I hope he's not gonna be problematic.
It's not
We
as
had a
simple
bunch
as
of coyotes.
the television, Marianne's never simple like it used to be, where you used to plug in
No,
anything, even a
no.
radio, you know?
No.
Gary, are you unmuted?
We had about a slew of coyotes in our backyard last night, and my dog went ballistic through the house. This went on for about 3 hours.
They're meeting now. That's why.
Yeah, we're off the wall. I have an 8-foot chain link fence that goes quite a distance off my
Oh,
breezeway,
shoot. Oh,
so
no,
it goes a
stop it.
whole to the house. But he almost climbed that before to get at the coyotes. He climbed right up the top. My husband grabbed him
Oh,
by
yeah.
the stomach and they fell backwards.
Jeez.
He's a shepherd, so he's good to have around.
What kind of dog is it?
German shepherd. It's a purebred shepherd.
Yeah. I grew up with those.
Beautiful.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, he loves. He's great. He's great with people and kids. But other like pit bulls, he wants to kill them. Other shepherds, he doesn't like them either.
You
Especially the
unmuted now?
coyotes. Hmm.
You can hear me, Liz?
I can hear you.
Everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. All right, good. And we'll go ahead and start the meeting.
Hear me?
I tell
Gary?
the, what?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
I
hear
was
you.
gonna.
Now that you got your hair cut, you can hear us all, right?
Perfect, isn't it? Beautiful,
But we
right?
can't see it. Oh, that's nice. Nice and modern. That's nice.
Right
So
to
I
the-
guess I'll open the meeting by starting our roll call vote so we can get going. So Christine?
Here.
Gary, here. Debbie?
Here.
Marianne?
Yeah.
Liz?
Present.
George?
Present.
Nate?
Here.
Thanks for everybody being here. Should be a fairly short meeting. So when you go to, Don Marie has to do the intro for our Zoom meeting. Don, if you want to do that.
Sure. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and the February 10th, 2021 Community Preservation Committee meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Dawn Marie Flett, CPA Program Coordinator, and I'll be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view or listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with this virtual meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants of the virtual meeting enter the meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask for a roll call vote. For public participation, comments or questions from the public will be taken at the discretion of the chair. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. If you're dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves first by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and then to provide their comment each time they speak. I'll now hand the meeting back to the chair.
Okay. Liz, do you have your hand up? Okay. I have a hand on you. But
Maybe I had,
anyways,
what's the hand?
means when you raise your hand, it shows up on my screen.
Like that? Is that what
No,
you're-
is it gone now?
It's still there. If you don't have a question, it's fine.
I will physically raise a hand if I do have one.
Okay, do that. It's easier
I'll
for me
do-
to
I'll-
see.
I'll do
easier
that
For me
too.
to see it. So anyways, what we're going to start with today is our budget discussion and vote. I will let everybody know, as we talked about last time, me, Karen, and Dawn got together yesterday and discussed everything about the projects approved, what buckets they should go in, and the projects that are not being held over. So I'm going to let Karen explain that. I would assume everybody has the a budget in front of them. Should be in your packet. If not, I'm sure Karen could show it on the screen. But what we're going to do is let Karen explain the whole thing, and then I'll go back. Anybody has any questions or suggestions? If not, then we'll put it to a vote to approve it as done or amended. So Karen?
Everybody see the
in
screen?
front of me. Yep.
I'm gonna try to make it as a little bit bigger. There. So you guys have seen this spreadsheet before, and just to try to walk you through it as quickly as possible, up top where it says total FY21 balance, those are the amounts of funding that we have kind of quote in the bank. These are existing funds. The next line, estimated FY22 receipts, those are our anticipated receipts that we don't have access to until July. Those are receipts that would come in over fiscal 22, and those figures are based on the 3% surcharge with the $100,000 exemption. The next group of funds that will become available are the returns we had postponed at the fall town meeting. We have $400,000 for Yankee Village that will be coming back into our open space reserve bucket. And then we have a home loan, home modification loan that's been returned. That funding was originally appropriated from undesignated. So the receipt will go back to the undesignated bucket. So we have some totals. The figures that you see here available for FY22 spending, that includes all three sources. It includes the funding on hand, it includes receipt, and it includes any receipts that are being reassigned to their appropriate bucket. So the first question that I just ask you to think about in the back of your head, it was something we talked about with Gary, and Gary chime in. You have funding that's in the bank and funding that you're going to get. And the question is do you want to spend out of estimated receipts, or do you want to try to stick to the existing balances that are on?
Well, I think, Karen, just continue to go through the budget the way we proposed it, because
Mhm.
I don't think we have to answer that question if you go through
Okay.
the budget. So I do
Okay.
have a question for you, and I don't think you'll have the answer. I don't know. So my question was being in the memorandum in regards to the Yankee Village, the park that we're proposing,
Yes.
where we feel we might need more money to complete it for the bridge.
Yes.
Before we return, however, the 400,000 without going back in and asking town meeting for more money, is there any way we can use some of that 400,000 to complete the park?
I will check with the finance director, but I do not believe that's the case. So that had been my understanding. So when the funding actually came back, I thought we'd be able to tap into that $400,000, but I was informed when we received the receipt that it needed to go through the appropriation process. So
Yeah.
I'll confirm that and get that answer out to you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. So what we've proposed for, should I move on, Gary? You good?
Yep.
Okay. So the strategy we took was we grouped the applications that you've approved by type. And so the first four are affordable housing applications. That's a total of $709,000 worth of applications. You don't have enough. I have to make this a little bit smaller. You don't have enough kind of in the bank. If I just look at the housing balance of 274, and even with the estimated receipt of 175, you only have at your hands 449,000. So what we've proposed is that you take the $200,000 Affordable Housing Trust annual deposit and the Hands of Hope and some of the Cape and Island Veterans Center Outreach, Veterans Outreach Center, excuse me, from the housing bucket, and the balance of those applications to be funded from the undesignated. So in this case, the only housing application that's split is this Veterans Outreach Center. So we take 40,000 from housing and 59,900 out of undesignated. The full 375 for the Affordable Housing Trust's buy down program would also come from undesignated. But this way, you are clearing, you're spending all of the balance, but you're not tapping into the receipts. So you can see at the bottom of the page that it leaves you with 0 on hand, but here's your anticipated receipt balance. Does anybody have questions, or I don't know how you want to handle it, Gary? If you
Well,
want.
the same, we can do it the way they do it at town meeting. Does anybody have any questions about how we're handling the housing bucket and how we're going into undesignated? I don't even like talking about anticipated receipts until we have to.
Mhm.
You know,
Gary, I have a question.
Liz,
I'm raising my hand. I don't know if you can see me though, because
I see it. Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can you give me an update? I can't remember. The Veterans Outreach Center, wasn't that application still loosey-goosey? It wasn't complete. So are we really, I mean, is that going on the FY22 annual town meeting appropriation budget, or are we postponing that so we don't even have to split it up and go into our, soak up our balance?
I think the answer to that is, I think we should keep it open. We can always withdraw it. The way it was left, it is, I wanted them to get back to me with a list of items that weren't reimbursable or weren't reimbursements. I have yet to hear from them. And I don't know, Karen, have we heard from Adam or Don?
I have
I
not
have
heard
not.
from him, but I believe he gave them to March 1st to come back with a plan. So I can try to touch base
they-
with him this week, find out where exactly he is in the process.
So I'd say we leave it on there, Liz, and we get back to them. We give them to March 1st. If we don't, then it'll be on there, but you can always withdraw it from the floor. I hate to say no to that project because of this. It's a technicality. We can't reimburse.
I agree. I just couldn't remember though, if the application for the entire, $100,000 was a complete application or not. So it's worthy. It's just that we need,
I think the application was complete. It's just a matter, I want them to pick certain projects that they have not done that they'd be looking for money for. And, we asked them for that. And like we said, we haven't heard back from them, but March 1st is plenty long enough. If they can't get back to us or call me or email me with questions, then that's going to be the burdens on them. And we can always withdraw it or amend it at town meeting. I prefer not to. I would
Right,
say
and-
if we don't hear by March 1st, we just withdraw it.
and then they can still tap into that money once it's appropriated. There is no time restriction, correct?
Be July.
So let's say if they don't get the application 100% correct, even after the money's been appropriated, and it's been years and they're still it's not there yet. The money will still be there, correct?
Well, no, because if we withdraw it, then it doesn't go to town meeting and we appropriate nothing for this year.
No, but if we move forward though, I'm just making sure I've got my memory and the whole.
I just know we can just withdraw it anytime before town meeting and say we're not recommending it.
Got it. Okay, at this time.
Anyway, I don't want to be going back and forth on 10, 20, they either do what we ask or we withdraw it.
Okay,
It's certainly not unreasonable, and legally we have to do it that way. So,
got it. Okay, thank you.
okay, Karen, next we're going to go into what, historic?
Oh, historic, I'm going to take out the Methodist Church application. Bond. And the cultural center, my understanding is you've already, ruled out $10,000 of their total request. This column was just their total requests. So if we look at it this way, you have about $692,000 worth of requests. In the historic balances, you have $429,000. So what we recommended here was to fund everything out of the historic reserve, with the exception of the Taylor Bray Farm barn, which we've split between the historic reserve and the undesignated reserve. And that was in order to stay within the existing funds balance.
Okay, anybody, any questions on the historic projects? Don't see any. So,
Okay.
George,
Gary,
you have a
just-
question? George?
Just a point of order. And so I understand that the 150,000 is for the, full cost of the town records management, creation, development, and then the actual, scanning of the documents. And I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a number of those documents that are going to be historic, and there's going to be a number that are not. And just, from bucket management, if you will, if in fact Taylor Bay Farm goes much higher, if in fact there are projects during the next cycle that are important and we don't have the budget for it, would Historic then have access to undesignated?
Yes. Right, Karen?
That's, yeah, George.
You got to remember these
it-
buckets are a minimum for these
Right.
categories. That's the reason for the undesignated. We go
It's the
into,
mandated minimum.
right. It's not any hard number that we have to hold to, but before we go into, if something is clearly historic, I think we should empty the bucket first before we go to undesignated.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask the question and get it on record. Thank you.
Well, that's typically how we've done it in the past, George, so.
Right.
George, the undesignated reserve can be used to fund any CPA project that fits the 4 criteria.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, any more questions on
Hey,
historic?
Scary.
Yeah, Liz? Somebody have a question?
Poor Liz.
I know. The hand's gone though, it's not there. All right, then I guess you can move on to open space next, right?
Okay, so we have 4, I think. Oops.
Yes.
We have
I'm
4
counting 4.
potential open space, and my cursor's acting wacky, applications. So Higgins Kroll Road, we still do not have a dollar value for you. So we just need to park that for now. The 3 remaining projects that could be considered open space, and Riverwalk Park is also recreation. So we took the Friends of Bass River and the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth Culvert, and we assigned those out of the open space bucket. So open space has, oops, wrong way. A fair amount of funding in it right now. Right now, the balance is $1,077,000. Estimated receipts, we have the 400,000 from Yankee Village coming in, so there will be $1.6 million there. So that, that's important because you may have Higgins Kroll acquisition, which will require some funding, and just land is expensive. So we took the Friends of Bass River and the Historical Society culvert from this bucket, but we put the Riverwalk Park, which is really a park, into the undesignated bucket in full. So that's that. Any questions?
Any questions on the open space? Okay, lastly, we have the recreation project.
So we have, oh, I'm sorry, Gary. So Sandy Pond, we had been carrying the request, which has fluctuated, of course. And at the, I think it was the January 26th selectmen's meeting, it seemed like we got pretty good direction to hold off and get some more consensus on that project and bring it forward when it's ready. And so we have not budgeted any amount for the Sandy Pond request.
So nothing will be at the Springtown meeting for Sandy Pond, but it's still an open application. So we'd still be able to talk about that for the fall town meeting.
So with these appropriations, just as they would stand right now, you can look at this bottom line, which I'm gonna double check my formula right now. It looks like it's right. So you'd be appropriating the full balance out of historic, the full balance out of housing, just $118,000 from open space, and $2.2 million just to round things up out of undesignated. It does leave you with, if we, I'm stuttering. We have $5 million, you're spending 3, that leaves you with 2 on hand. And then we'd be taking in another 1.7 approximately. And that leaves you with a healthy balance going forward of about $4 million.
Does, but you know, as a committee, like we've talked about, if Higgins Crow Road and Sandy Pond, you know, the projects that we still have and are anticipating, we'd still be able to cover those, but it's not, if they come to fruition, it's not going to be a healthy balance. It's going to be, I think, where we should be. So
I
to be
agree.
like we have it not, money is not so because we're anticipating these projects.
No, I didn't mean to insinuate that you have oodles of
I know, but
money lying around.
you don't want to say, you don't want to say that, you know.
No.
You know how that goes. Oh, they have tons of money. Let's raid them. All right. So anyways, anybody have any questions about the budget and the way we've proposed it of Karen, myself, Don? If not, I can hear a motion to approve the budget as presented.
So
So
moving,
moved.
and well done, you guys.
Give Karen and Don all the credit. I just told them to do it. And if I didn't
Thank
like
you.
it, I'd open my mouth. If not, I'd shut up, Sam. That's how we got here. So thank you, ladies. Good job. Motion by Liz, second.
Debbie,
Debbie seconds. All right,
Yep.
roll call. Gary, yes. Mary Ann,
Yes.
Liz,
Aye.
Christine,
aye.
Nate,
Aye.
what am I missing?
Debbie.
Who?
I
Oh,
think.
Debbie, Debbie. Yeah,
Aye.
okay. So the budget
Aye.
And George.
and George.
And yourself, Gary.
I said aye.
Oh, I'm
Aye.
sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
That's 7.
thank you.
You're welcome. So Gary, we'll proceed, Don Marie and I, with drafting articles for the town meeting warrant so that you have those in hand when you go to meet with the selectmen, which my understanding is scheduled for the 23rd of February.
Yeah, so next, and I know we really don't do it till we do contracts, but I want to just mention this to all of our board members, conditions. We'd like to be able to tell the selectmen we're going to impose these conditions on certain projects. So, I mean, Don, you and I and Karen can come up with some proposed ones, but I'd also say to everybody else, if there's any special conditions that you'd like to put on a project, every one of them, I want to have a time limit for either getting back to us. It'll be a year up to 3 years. And we would, next meeting, we'll propose to you what we think they should be. You can always amend it at that point. But if you have any suggestions for conditions for any projects, feel free to let Don or Karen know. So on that, next, I guess on project updates, we have the letter of support from Historic and others for the Cultural Center. I think we're all
If, Gary, if I may speak on that.
George.
So I communicated with Grace, and the letters of support are on her checklist. She's buried, and I have offered to draft that, so I will draft it. And as you recall, there is a condition on the Cultural Center that we get architectural drawings on the door. So I will draft that for Grace, and Grace and Karen can take a look at it, and then we'll get it off to the committee.
Okay, yeah, we'd like to have all that before we get to the selectmen's meeting also.
Yep.
I think we all know the update on Sandy Pond, which is being held open, but we'll be getting information on that. Something else on Sandy Pond, I know, Christine, I would think somewhere along the line, somebody's going to, because we talked about the water cost. Is there any way they can project the cost of the water to the taxpayers? I know we talked about water, but whenever we get to town meeting on that, I think there should be an estimated water cost, because that's a taxpayer cost. I don't know how they
Gary, I
project.
think they covered that. It was explained to us by Jeff that it is actually not a cost for taxpayers out of their pockets, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Right.
Just, yeah, it's not us paying for water. It's town-owned water already. So there is no cost associated with it. What the costs associated are the maintenance, the ongoing, if there's staff involved, if there's improvements or things that like get cracked and there's like that kind of maintenance, or like a mechanism for the water sprinkler system that breaks, and those are ongoing costs, and trash and DPW and all of that kind of stuff. It's not the water, and I believe Jeff has talked about that a number of times.
I know we talked about it, and I somewhat agree with that and somewhat don't, because you know the big crisis we pretty much up against in this town is water. So the water isn't just coming to the site for nothing. We're paying. So I
Oh,
would just like to.
You want an in-kind service examination.
Yeah, I'd like to see anticipated gallons
Okay,
of
in-kind service,
usage.
right?
I
Of like
think that's only-
electricity to get it pumped through and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's only fair to the taxpayers when they all get a water bill and we go, well, there's no cost to this water. We know that's not real. George?
But there's also an assumed environmental cost if you're depleting the aquifer. And the last
Yeah.
3 summers, we've had very dry summers. And if we're going to take millions of gallons out, and yes, to, the comment made, well, it'll sift back into the aquifer, but, the aquifer moves. That's a real cost.
I think that would be a policy decision on operations that would need to be made and examined.
Yeah, well, that's why if he could just, and I don't want to get off onto Sandy Pond again today, but I just kept thinking about that, the water. And George, it's a relevant point. I don't know if any are you aware, but this happened probably 10 years ago down in Nickerson State Park. When Brewster Green put the golf course in, they used so much water for the golf course that it depleted the water in the ponds, which I fish in all the time. It created an algae bloom. Dogs got put. So there's an environmental impact to everything like that. And I think, George, you bring up a good point. I'd like to see that, have all the figures so we know. We have to make an educated decision on that. Christine knows more about this than anybody. Christine, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree with George about the environmental impact. I mean, if we're going to have a drought in the summertime, if we have to turn off or limit the water supplies to our lawns, are we going to turn something off that costs a lot of money to install?
Yeah. Right. So the only reason I would just like to see as we go forward, maybe Karen or Don just send a memo to Jeff that we're concerned about this and we'd like to see more facts and figures as it relates to water and impact. All right.
Okay.
What next we have Yankee Village. I don't know if everybody read I'd asked for, and Christine did too, an update as to the status of the, I don't want to be a wise guy and call it Wood Chip Park, but it's Wood Chip Park. So it is being worked on and we have an update. Kelly got back to us on what they're doing. There's a lot of work to be done there to get to the point, which is what I brought up before. This is the first I'm hearing of the fact they think they might need more money for the bridge, which was why I was asking Karen if there's any way we could tap into that 400,000 without returning it. If not, we're going to end up going back to town meeting asking for money to build a bridge, and they're going to ask us why we didn't anticipate this. Karen, do you have any I know you and I have talked about this, so.
Yep. So we have a number of sources of funding for this project. We have the balance from the CPA appropriation because we appropriated, I think, $975,000. We did not use the full amount for the acquisition. We have funding from the Cape Cod Commission that they normally set aside for mitigation of developments of regional impacts. So this is all the open space money, and we've already got that in hand. The request was made some time ago. It's approved and in the bank. You know, we are planning on seeking additional funds locally. One source that might be very appropriate is the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund. That we could look for funding for furniture, park furniture, the bridge, offset some of the costs. They've been very generous in the past with other projects around town. I was going to take a look at the parcel to the west at Chasebrook Park is land bank property. So we do have some maintenance funds remaining on hand. So we may be able to make upgraded improvements on that end as we work to kind of integrate the way we've got 3 different pocket parks. We'd like it to look like one park. So we'll be making those improvements. We do have a small balance. I was going to look at the town meeting language for Mill Creek Park that was voted. I do think the funding, I talked to Christine around 1 o'clock. I didn't have a chance to look at the town meeting warrant language to see what the scope of the vote was, but that may present some other balance. I will follow up with Ed on whether or not we can tap that 400, but I don't think that's the case.
I don't think we can either, but I think we should ask.
I'm happy to ask. I'm never shy about it.
Yeah, I bring this up all the time. If you can do picnic tables and benches, even the bridge, there is the opportunity to ask for naming rights for those.
Absolutely. And I've even had some conversations, it was some time ago, pre-COVID, with a neighbor who was very interested in making a donation. The site means a lot to her for a variety of reasons. And she was interested in helping to raise additional funds for the site. So that's definitely an option as well.
I know we're short-staffed, but I mean, these would be things, hopefully we can pursue these.
Oh, absolutely. No, we're all frustrated with the pace of progress on this project. We're happy to have a little bit of breathing room right now to be able to move forward with it.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it.
I felt, and I know Christine does, and I'm sure the board does, we've gotten this point, we've done really well financially to get to this point and get this park for the town. But I think it should be one of our priorities to complete it before we start jumping into other town projects in the coming years. We should complete that, Baxter Mill, the barn, and get these done before and I'm sure you don't need any more projects dumped on you, Karen, but
No, but they're all so worthy. So,
yeah.
And we're excited about all of them.
Yeah, going into the summer, if things open back up, there's gonna be a lot of people driving by that park.
Yeah, and it does, it looks beautiful, even with wood chips. So
Look better than it did. Yes.
absolutely.
Christine?
Yeah, I just want to thank Kelly for her very prompt response. I appreciate it. And if Dawn puts, if we have a meeting in April, if you put it on an agenda for a follow-up for the status, once these bids and plans start forming up. And I thank her very much. And Karen too.
Got back to us right away and you saw all her answers. Good job. And I know she's understaffed too, so.
It was perfect timing for the question.
It is. That's why we bring it up. Now, when you
Sometimes
go
we
to
get
the
lucky.
when you go to the selectmen looking for funding to help her, you certainly have our support. Okay, Don, what else do we have?
Just the minutes from January 20th.
Everybody read the minutes? Any comments, questions? If not, I'll hear a motion. Christine, you have a question?
No, I have a motion to accept the minutes.
By Christine, seconded. By anyone?
Second,
I'll second it. Oh,
Sec-
Liz, you take it.
okay.
Not fight over seconds.
Yeah.
Debbie, you can have it. You were first, so. Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes of January 20th? Or, oh, January 20th. Christine,
Aye.
Gary, aye. Marianne,
I wasn't here, I don't think.
Liz,
Aye.
George,
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Yeah, me too.
Debbie,
Aye.
Nate? Nate gone.
He left, I think.
Okay, motion is made and accepted for the minutes. Do we have anything else, Don?
No, I think that's it.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We kept it under an hour. And I would, again, I gotta thank everybody for coming here. I know how hard it is to work this in at the last minute, but we have great attendance and it's appreciated. Okay, motion by George to adjourn, second.
Mary Ann,
Second.
second.
And
Second,
Liz,
Liz.
Liz gets this one.
She got in there.
Good job. Christine,
Aye.
Gary, aye. Marianne,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Deb,
hi.
like my haircut, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right to the wood.
Yeah.
All right,
Hey,
meeting
Gary,
adjourned.
can
Thank you,
Gary,
everybody.
Stay on for a minute,
Thanks, guys.
Gary.
Thanks,
Yep,
Donna
I'm
Marie. Thanks, Karen.
Everybody,
You're welcome.
everybody
Thanks for
be
your,
safe and warm.
patience too.
Yeah, be careful out there.
Gary.
Yeah, go ahead, Deb. I can hear
Oh,
you.
I just, this is just a question. I didn't know if you realized that Paul Huggins